Good evening. I want to thank all of you for coming. So delighted to see you. My name is Judith Rue, and I'm the chair of the Frontiers in Science lecture series. And this series is funded by our donor, Dr. Jenny Griselli-Brown, who makes this possible. And unfortunately, she couldn't be here tonight, but I know she'd be delighted with this turnout and with our two speakers. Now, let me tell you just a little bit about Gastropod. It's now 4.5 years old. It really looks at food through the lens of science and history. It's conducted by Cynthia Graber and Nicola Twilley. And they really do literally serve up a new episode in their podcast every 2 weeks. They look at the hidden history of foods, the surprising science that's involved, and how farming and history have interacted so that there's surprises and learning in every episode. They look at ancient feasts, they look at almost everything you can think of. And yet they teach us while they're doing that, and they make it such wonderful learning. So they interview experts, and I'm sure they're going to have someone that's here tonight. So without any more waiting, I want to go ahead and introduce Cynthia and Nicole.
Little tech stuff as we get going. I do. You have a mic over here. Want me to get it for you? Great. Here you go.
Thank you. That looks like us.
Yeah, there we go. So, how many of you have ever listened to Gastropod before?
Ooh, a lot of hands. Well, all of you are going to be able to raise your hands after this evening because this is Gastropod, but live.
And if you've heard it before, this part's going to sound a little familiar. I'm Cynthia Graber.
And I'm Nicola Twilley. And like I just said, this is Gastropod, the podcast that looks at food through the lens of science and history.
We are thrilled to be with you here tonight at Ohio University in Athens, Ohio.
The home of the great annual Ohio Pawpaw Festival.
Which is not in February. Yeah.
Pawpaw
You guys know about this.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, it's not in February, but we did try pawpaws for the first time ever today. Frozen, but still.
We were pawpaw virgins, and now we're not. Major life milestone achieved.
And if any of you are pawpaw virgins, then after tonight you won't be. And we have one of the country's top pawpaw experts to come on stage with us and share his pawpaw wisdom.
And his pawpaw treats. That's right, we brought snacks. But you can't touch them until we tell you to. So sit tight, keep your hands off the fruit. You've got to earn it.
Tonight, we are going to be doing a science experiment on all of you. You are going to hack your taste buds.
That's right. Things are going to get weird inside your mouth. And for some of you, things are also going to get a little awkward because we are going to be getting some volunteers up on stage with us for some aphrodisiac myth busting. Is there any science behind the idea that certain foods can get you in the mood?
And to help us with all these stories and experiments, we will be joined on stage by the aforementioned pawpaw expert.
And then at the end of the evening, we are going to open it up for questions. So save up any questions you have as we're going along. You can ask whatever you want at the end.
But first, we know this is a science-literate crowd, so we thought some of you might be wondering why we named our show after a mollusk.
yeah, we're not only about snails. Although we did visit America's first commercial snail farm for one of our episodes. But it's surprisingly hard to name a podcast.
You should have heard some of our early brainstorming sessions. We came up with some real winners. Because, for a podcast name, it's got to be easy to say, easy to remember. It's got to have something to do with food and maybe podcasting.
So, Gastropod it is. Dun, dun, dun. Hey, Cynthia. Guess what?
What, did you suddenly remember you have somewhere else to be?
I mean, you can run the show without me, right? NBD?
Yeah.
No, I was going to say, hey, Cynthia, it's time to get romantic.
Nikki, don't we already spend enough time together? We've been work wives for years. Aren't we past the romance stage?
I don't know what you mean. My feelings for you are still red hot.
I promise not to tell your husband.
He's already jealous. But maybe we can rekindle your feelings, Cynthia, using the age-old magic of aphrodisiacs. I mean, this is something you have some personal experience with, right? Not to get all TMI for our audience, some of whom have only just met us, but please, share.
Right. So, a couple years ago, I was on vacation in Belize with my partner, Tim, and we went snorkeling, and it was mind-blowing. While we were snorkeling, our guide went freediving for conch, and he brings one up, he takes it into the boat, and he's taking the meat out of the shell, and he pulls out this long, thin, see-through, gelatinous bit. And he says, "Want a bite?" And I said, "Sure." And I said, "I wonder what part of the animal this is." And I missed him saying something about how it's like Viagra. So I took a bite, my partner Tim took a bite, random woman who was snorkeling with us, she took a bite, and again I said, "I wonder what part of the animal this is." And without missing a beat at the exact same time, Tim and the guide said, "The good part."
So I am not going to ask what happened next, but the good part for those of you raised in Catholic school, that's the penis. And the idea is that eating it will lead to fun times in the bedroom.
We didn't rip each other's clothes off or anything, but this idea was and is really widespread that you should eat genitalia to make your own genitalia more potent. People have eaten stag penises and bull penises, penises from all sorts of animals, testicles from all sorts of animals too.
It's kind of sympathetic magic. The idea is you can somehow absorb the strength and vigor of others by eating them.
But we are a science show as well as a history show, so I should point out there is no science to this sympathetic magic.
Yes. And in fact, we are so super scientific that we are going to do our very own on-stage live science experiment with all of you here tonight, but we need volunteers. So, raise your hands.
Just wait.
Yeah. If you are in a couple here with your partner and you are both omnivores, no food allergies. Okay? Hands up.
Any hands up?
Come on.
Are there, two of you. We need two of you. You two in the front, or is that, can you come up? Yeah, great. Come on up. Come on. No, you're good. That's for later.
Come on up.
Okay. Hello.
Let's stand you over there. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, what are your names? Chloe and Jack.
All right. So we have a couple of foods with us here tonight that have a long history of being used as aphrodisiacs, and we figured, why not feed them to you and see what happens? Not feed them to you in any kind of sexy way.
Or find out what happens in any sort of immediate way.
All right. So first up, we have 2 spears of extremely sexy, out-of-season asparagus. All righty. Here you go.
Pretty exciting. Okay, take a bite.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
It's working already.
Yeah. Okay, so anything yet? Okay. Well, so here you go. Hold it. Yeah, no. How about a slice of smoking hot pear? Oops. Let's see. Here you go.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel pressured.
anything now? Okay, at least it's good. Good.
Yeah. So while you guys are feeling your feelings for a minute, why don't we explain the hypothesis behind our super scientific experiment?
So in case your minds are not in the gutter, asparagus and pears are supposed to work as aphrodisiacs because they look like penises and vaginas, or maybe curvy breasts in the case of the pear.
You can see whatever you want in there, Cynthia. But so there is some logic to this idea, at least if you believe that God created the world for mankind, which the medieval Europeans who were eating asparagus as an aphrodisiac definitely did. So their theory goes, okay, God made all this stuff for us. Why would he not also label the objects of his creation according to their rightful uses? And so if he made asparagus look like a pointy penis, implication is he's trying to tell you it's good for your penis.
So there were lots of fruits and vegetables that fit into these categories, things that looked like either male or female genitalia or body parts. And it wasn't just the Europeans who thought that if it looked like a thing, it should be good for the thing. The Chinese thought so too. It's one of the reasons that bulbous ginseng was considered an aphrodisiac.
So I want to check in with our guinea pigs here. How are you guys doing?
He said he wants another pear.
We can give that to you at the end. We can take that down with you. Okay. Well, so we do have another food for you to try. Let me check this out and see what we have here. Hold on. You each, okay, just wanted to make sure we have it. Oh yeah, I'm gonna put it on your plate here. You each are going, not yet, you are going to get to eat an oyster. Now, these are smoked ones, but raw oysters are supposed to look like a body part, a female one, if it's not totally obvious. And the brininess is also supposed to be, sort of like women.
And the slipperiness, if you know what I mean. And oysters have an influential poster boy in the form of legendary lover Casanova. Famously, he had 50 oysters a day for breakfast and said that oysters were like women swimming in their own juices.
So here you go.
Slurp those oysters. Uh-huh.
Oh, this isn't really the best way to try them for the first time, but you'll be okay.
Oh, you think live on stage smoke in front of it isn't? Oh, come on, Cynthia.
So I have to admit I'm a huge oyster fan, but the reason that oysters have been thought to maybe actually work as aphrodisiacs is that they have a lot of zinc. And zinc is apparently really important for the growth of sperm. So how do you feel?
Hot? Yeah. So might be the power of suggestion. We actually spoke with a couple of researchers, and they said that yes, it is true that baby sperm needs zinc, but unfortunately there is no evidence correlating taking zinc with setting things on fire in the bedroom, so sorry.
Thank you both. You've been great sports. You can take some pear if you like. You can have a seat. Sure. The next people don't need any pear. Feel free to have another piece. That is not an issue. Thank you.
Go somewhere more private if you need.
Yeah, if you need to go somewhere more private, that's fine. We need another couple. This one, vegetarians are fine. But again, need to be here with your partner and no food allergies. Come on, you saw how easy that was. It's not that. It was
not
fine.
that bad. Was it that bad?
I see. Yeah, so yeah, there we go. Over there. You guys
come on up. Only half the couple has to actually.
I know. I like it when one partner ends up volunteering both.
I know. It's the key to a successful relationship
Totally.
right there. All right. What are your guys' names? Maddie and Jordan. Well, you are tonight's lucky winners because our next aphrodisiac is chocolate. All righty. Oh, here we go. You can help yourself. Grab a piece each of that. Get it down you. And we will check in with you in a moment. Chocolate obviously has a lot of things going for it. One, it's delicious. Two, we already associate it with love and romance, Valentine's Day.
But this association between chocolate and romance and sex goes way back to the time of the Aztecs. Cacao was an important energy food in what's now Central and South America, and energy in all sorts of realms. The Aztec ruler Montezuma drank a legendary 50 cups of chocolate a day, and he apparently drank chocolate before visiting his harem.
Chocolate made its way across the Atlantic in the 1500s. The conquistadors saw how it was being used in the New World and brought it back to Europe. And one of the earliest commercial chocolate makers, an Englishman with the familiar sounding name of Cadbury, he picked up on this Montezuma association and he started packaging his confections in a heart-shaped box decorated with bows and cupids and flowers, and it caught on. Chocolate became the gift to give your sweetheart, particularly on the newly commercialized holiday of St. Valentine.
But it's also that chocolate was exotic and expensive things have always been considered aphrodisiacs, like potatoes. When they came from the New World to the Old World, potatoes were considered an expensive and exotic aphrodisiac. Yeah, potatoes. So how are you both feeling after your chocolate? Pretty good?
Oh,
Good.
yeah. So in this case, again, we did speak with a couple of researchers, Elizabeth West and Michael Crickman. They had studied the science of aphrodisiacs, and they told us that there is actually a chemical in chocolate that can act as a stimulant. But unfortunately, studies looking at its effects showed that they were neither clinically nor statistically significant. But you know what? If you're feeling good, I say go with it. Chocolate is delicious, and I endorse it highly for all sorts of pleasure-boosting purposes.
But don't worry, we've got more food for you to try. You each now get to have a cherry tomato. Feel free to pick one up. There you go, cherry tomatoes. So tomatoes are I know, exciting. Go ahead. Yeah. They're exciting foods. They're kind of like potatoes. They're food from the New World that made its way to the Old World and were considered exotic and expensive. And like the potato, the tomato was considered an aphrodisiac.
Which is also partly because of a mistake. The tomato got lost in translation. So what happened was the Moors took the tomato from Spain to Morocco, and from there it got to Italy, and the Italians called it pomme di Mori, meaning apple of the Moors. And the French misheard that as pomme d'amour, which translates as love apple. It's like a game of Chinese whispers.
So I don't know what that is, Nikki, but I'm guessing you're saying it's like playing telephone?
Tomato, tomato.
How are you both feeling after your tomatoes?
Well, and think about it this way. You got one of
Not
your
yet,
5 a
perfect.
day. But really, since that whole thing was based on a mistranslation, I'm not surprised you're not ripping each other's clothes off. We do have something else for you to try.
2 more things.
This one is something of an unusual taste experience, if I'm being honest, but it does come from no less a source than everyone's favorite sex guru, the ancient Roman natural philosopher Pliny.
So Pliny wanted us to crush coriander and garlic and steep them in white wine. He called it an infallible sexual stimulant. So here you both go.
Yeah.
Can have a sip there. Yep, the little sip of the wine, have a little sip.
Cha-ching.
Yep. So you should be glad as you drink that we didn't choose one of Pliny's other suggestions. He wanted men and women to rub nettles on their genitalia. Stinging nettles. Not something I'd recommend.
Some people like a little pain, what can I say? But, the other category
down,
of
it's okay, I won't make you
ancient
drink it.
aphrodisiac that we decided not to try out live on stage with you all tonight was windy foods. Windy meaning beans and artichokes and legumes and things that make you fart. The ancients believed that an erection was caused by trapped wind or pressure in the body, and so feeding your partner flatulent foods was a surefire way to give them a hard-on.
So I've had Pliny's concoction before, and I'm guessing what you're both feeling is a little more grossed out than turned on. Is that right? Yeah. So we wanted to leave you with something much sweeter.
Yes. This next recipe comes from an ancient Arabic book called The Perfumed Garden of Sensual Delight. This one is specifically targeted at men. It comes from a chapter called Prescriptions for Increasing the Dimensions of Small Members and for Making Them Splendid. Now, we are not saying anything about your member, obviously, but it can't hurt, right?
So what you each have here are you each get to take one of these little balls. Don't eat it yet, just hold on. Yeah, pick it up. So you each have a ball, and it's made of, it's a little mussy there, it's true. It's made
Part of the fun.
Oh, yeah. Just hold on to it. It's made of honey and crushed almonds and crushed pine nuts. And in theory, you're supposed to feed them to your partner for 3 nights in a row. We are just a one-night show. But we figured we'd give it a try anyway, so feed it to each other, if you can. I know, it's a little messy there.
This looks good. This must be working. I think this is as hot as it's been on stage so far.
This is good. How you doing? Good.
Yeah. I mean, you have 2 more nights of honey balls to go, so I think by the end it's going to be a fluid motion. And honey is another of those things that has a long association with love and sex. Honeymoon, you're my honey. Not you, Cynthia. But turns out that association actually probably has more to do with the fermented honey drink, mead, which, like all alcohol, does advance the course of true love until it doesn't.
But so while there's no science behind honey in general as an aphrodisiac, there is actually this weird honey from Turkey called mad honey. People do use it as an aphrodisiac, and there is some science there. So it has a neurotoxin in it that bees pick up from rhododendrons in the area. And at low levels, it can slow down your heart rate, and it can make you a little lightheaded, and somehow this translates to a feeling of sexual arousal.
But at high doses, it's a hallucinogen, and it can give you a heart attack. So the researchers we spoke to, Elizabeth and Michael, they said there actually have been cases of couples taking this mad honey and thinking they were going to have a good time, and then they both died.
So don't try that at home. Thank you both. You have been amazing sports.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So at this point, you all might be wondering, do any aphrodisiacs work? Is there science behind any of this, or is it all just mistranslations and mistaken medical beliefs?
So we talked to the 2 scientists, Elizabeth and Michael, and they looked at any and all research on any and all aphrodisiacs, and they found some slight evidence for 2 substances. One of these is ginseng. It's supposed to be good for athletic and sexual energy. And they think that it works by relaxing the smooth muscles, and this might help increase blood flow to the penis and vaginal walls, but they say there isn't enough research for them to recommend it as an aphrodisiac. The second one is a tuber from South America called maca, and the Incans relied on it for energy on their long trips. It seems to have some impact on erectile dysfunction, but the scientists say they don't understand the mechanism of action. They don't know how it works, and so the jury's still out.
Basically, we need a lot more research in this area. Even those studies on maca and ginseng, mostly done on animals, not humans. Scientists, get on this.
So now we are moving to a fruit that, as far as I know, has never been used as an aphrodisiac.
Oh, Cynthia, you probably can see something indecent in it, but...
Well, it does have a kind of silky, sensuous texture, but as it happens, it is the state native fruit of Ohio.
And until just a few hours ago, we could not tell you about its properties, aphrodisiac or otherwise, because, like I say, we were pawpaw virgins.
That's right, and now it is time, if any of you out there are like us, it is time for you guys to lose your pawpaw virginity too. And we have Ohio's top pawpaw expert here with us tonight. Chris Schmill, please come up and join us. Chris runs yeah, you guys know him here too. Chris runs the Pawpaw Farm, Integration Acres, which we got to visit today.
Okay, so Chris, you first fell in love with the pawpaw's cousin, the soursop, right? Or cherimoya, as it's sometimes called. So where did you meet the soursop, and how did it make you feel?
Wow. I was down in Merida studying Spanish, and was at a breakfast bar and had coco gelados, which was, ice with the soursop. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And it made me feel more complete.
So how did you end up transferring your affection to the pawpaw? What did you love about that?
Upon returning to the States, I was out hiking the hills of Southeast Ohio and was just disappointed that we had a cousin of the soursop just rotting on the ground everywhere.
Where is ground zero for the pawpaw?
Actually, right here in Southeast Ohio, we are the pawpaw capital of the world. And it has to, well, one of the reasons that I say that is that back in 1916, the American Genetic Association had a competition for the best pawpaws, and 5 out of the top 10 best pawpaws came from Southern Ohio.
Okay.
Round of applause for that,
I think
seriously.
that's a pretty big deal. So, elevator pitch for pawpaws. Why should we care about them? What makes them special?
Well, they're tropically delicious. They're nutritionally superior, and they are actually an aphrodisiac too. I forgot to tell you that earlier.
What? I was wrong.
They do look kind of like a... No.
They're using them to fight cancer as well. They can be grown organically, and those are some of the reasons. Historically significant.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. How long have they been eaten in North America?
Well, they say they've been growing here for over 30,000 years, and maybe the mastodons helped bring them up from the south. The native cultures were noted to be preserving them in different areas, and a lot of historic figures like Thomas Jefferson, George Washington loved pawpaws too.
Well, and that's what I wanted to know about, did Europeans immediately take to them? Were they kind of like, oh, this is cool? Or was there a little bit like, what are these strange foods here?
I think when Lewis and Clark were traveling, they made notations in their journal. And I think Thomas Jefferson heard about that and, made sure that he got some planted at Monticello. So, hard to say back in those days. But I think the exoticness of it was interesting to him.
Okay, so... Until today, like I said, I had never had a pawpaw.
I hadn't either. And I have to say, I grew up in Maryland, and it is in the pawpaw belt. So why haven't I ever had pawpaws? Why don't we all love them as much as you do?
Because they're not on the grocery store shelf, and they're harder to get. I would say that would be one of the main reasons. And that is because they're so perishable. They just don't last long, and after they're picked, they turn to a brown, icky mess in a quite short time, right? Yeah.
Okay, I guess we're the only pawpaw virgins here. You guys already know what to do here.
So, given all of these challenges, the brown icky mess, the non-lasting nature of their pleasures, can we talk about your 20-year odyssey growing pawpaws commercially? Let's start back at the beginning. When you decided to get into pawpaws, what did you first do? I graduated from OU, and I wanted to stay in Athens. And so instead of looking at all those rotten pawpaws on the ground, I started processing them. So just like when you have lemons, you make lemonade. So I had all these pawpaws, so I started squishing pawpaws. And
literally, I learned today that's a technical term. You squish them.
Yes. And preserving them for use year-round was my main goal because the short shelf life was a big obstacle. So luckily here in Athens, we have a community kitchen, and we were able to go there and do some experimenting, came up with ways to freeze it and make jarred products, and just get pawpaws out there.
So that was 20 years ago, and you've had this whole process and this whole pawpaw adventure. Tell us about your pawpaw farm today.
Yeah, we've got a couple acres of pawpaws in an orchard, and then we actually work with a lot of families in the region where we buy pawpaws from them, and we're the main processing hub. And we have a little pawpaw education center, and a freezer full of frozen pawpaw pulp.
And you also have goats. So what do goats have to do with pawpaws? Why they go together?
Well, inside of every cell of the pawpaw, there are these really powerful chemicals called annonaceous acetogenins. And those are being used to fight cancer. They've been used to make a lice shampoo. They're like a natural pesticide. So they protect the tree from bugs, but then they also protect the tree from browsing animals. So even goats, who may eat your tennis shoe or your shirt, will not eat a pawpaw because of those powerful annonaceous acetogenins. And so they help weed our pawpaw orchard. They help fertilize it. And then the main pollinator of the pawpaw is the fly. So the more manure and animals, the more flies. So it's a great symbiotic relationship.
Beautiful relationship.
Nice. You need the
Yeah.
shit. You just need it. So you are officially the world's largest processor of pawpaw frozen pulp. How much pulp do you freeze per year?
Yeah, we're doing about 6 tons a year right now. So that's our capacity.
So, and I know you have said that the flavor of frozen pulp isn't quite as good as fresh, but it's a good way to start. And you brought something for the audience. What do you have for them, and what should they think about as they try it?
Okay, so today we have a mousse made by Chelsea's Real Food. And we picked this because it won first prize in the Pawpaw Cook-Off at the Pawpaw Festival. I'm not sure which
Nice.
year it was. And so that's what you've got in the little black tub there.
It's in your little black tub. Grab that. And
Enjoy it.
Enjoy.
Think about pawpaws.
What do you suggest that our audience thinks about as they savor this?
Oh, wow. That's
Mastodons, true love, no.
Native Americans,
flies.
flies.
the Pawpaw Festival. I think, anybody been to the Pawpaw Fest out there? Yeah? All right.
Oh yeah.
We hope you can come back
I know.
for
We
a
do
full
too.
body
Yeah.
Pawpaw experience.
Well, so yeah, while everyone is savoring this, tell us about the Pawpaw Festival. I mean, obviously you can get fresh pawpaw there. What else goes on?
Well, it's a really nice community event. We have a lot of educational stuff around a bunch of sustainable living type of topics. We have a pollinator tent because people were amazed that flies were pollinators. And they got into a whole bunch of like swallowtail butterflies and all kinds of stuff like that. Lots of kids stuff. We have a pawpaw tent that is educating people about pawpaws like 24/7. Great pawpaw beer section. We had 9 local regional breweries making pawpaw beer. All of our food vendors have at least one pawpaw dish so that, when you come to the Pawpaw Festival, you're going to get an opportunity to eat many things with pawpaws. We got some addle throwing. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but it's the ancient spear throwers. They've been at every Pawpaw Festival ever. Yeah, kids stuff, people camping, a bunch of hippies.
So I have to say, we had a particular treat today at the farm. In addition to tasting pawpaws, we had the experience of you performing. So I was wondering if you would lead the group in a pawpaw song, and anyone who knows it can sing along. Would you mind singing for the audience?
Yes, and I didn't know the show was about aphrodisiacs, but this song actually has some true fact in it. Listen to it, okay?
Okay.
Where, oh, where is pretty little Susie? Where, oh, where is pretty little Susie? Where, oh, where is pretty little Susie? Way down yonder in the pawpaw patch, picking up pawpaws, putting them in her basket, picking up pawpaws, putting them in her basket, picking up pawpaws, putting them in her basket, way down yonder in the pawpaw patch. Come on, boys, let's go find her. Come on, boys, let's go find her. Come on, boys, let's go find her. Way down yonder in the pawpaw patch. They want to go find her because she's horny, okay? True fact.
Thank
Ask
you.
the scientists. They'll
Yeah.
tell you.
I love it.
There is some science.
That's so great. Thank you so much,
Thank
Chris. We are going to have him back up at the end of the show, so save up any of your questions for Chris. That was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have to focus again.
So I don't know, man. Aphrodisiacs, losing my pawpaw virginity, more aphrodisiacs. I feel like I'm being swept off my feet. Cynthia, what do you have planned for us next?
Don't take this the wrong way, Nikki, but it is time to play tricks on your tongue.
Yeah. So, okay, quick refresher. Taste is one of your 5 basic senses: sight, sound, touch, taste, smell. And taste is a chemical sense. It is not the same as flavor. Flavor is all the sensory information of a food combined. Taste is just a part of that.
So smell is probably the most important sense when it comes to flavor. As anyone who's ever had a cold nose, when your nose is stuffed, your food tastes like cardboard.
But taste is still important, and the magic all starts here in your taste buds on your tongue.
So taste buds are these round balls of cells. They look like little onions, as you can see over here. And they have nerves coming out of the bottom like roots. And at the top, there's a hole, a pore, and there are fingers that pick up chemical signals in liquid.
So these little onion guys, they are mostly sitting right beneath the surface of your tongue. There are a few scattered around the inside of your mouth, but mostly concentrated on your tongue. And what happens when you put a piece of food in your mouth is the chemicals in that food dissolve in your saliva, and then those little finger guys detect them. They send a little message down the nerve guys to your brain saying, hey, this chemical is in your mouth.
So there are receptors on our taste buds that correspond with specific chemicals, chemicals that our brain translates as tastes. There are 5 basic ones: sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami. Scientists think we might be able to pick up other tastes, maybe calcium, maybe even the taste of water, but those are still up for debate.
And there are good reason why we can taste those 5 major things when you think about what taste's main job is as an alert system for our body. I mean, your mouth is the gateway for all of these chemicals you're putting inside you.
So take sweet. When you put something sweet in your mouth, that sends a signal to your brain that it has a lot of calories. And this is great news from an evolutionary perspective. That advanced warning primes your digestive system. Sweet tastes literally get your juices going before the food ever hits your stomach.
Sweet is the most obvious one, but scientists have these theories for why we can taste all the things we can taste. So like salt, that is something our bodies can't make and that we need to survive. Umami, that signals protein, which our muscles need, stuff like that.
Here's something weird. Not all animals can taste the same things we do. Cats, for instance, they don't taste sweet. Their diet is nearly entirely protein, so they taste umami. Dolphins, whales, penguins, they've nearly entirely lost their sense of taste, probably because they swallow their food whole.
Something else that is kind of freaky but makes evolutionary sense is that other species don't just have taste buds in their mouth. So like fish, for example, they are covered in taste buds all over their body because they are picking up chemicals coming in all directions from the water.
Here's something even weirder. We have taste buds all over our bodies too. We have them in our guts and in our lungs. Guys even have bitter receptors in their testicles. Scientists aren't too sure why those are there.
Testicles. So many mysteries. Let's get back to tongues. So, does this diagram look familiar? Maybe your teacher taught it to you in school? If so, your teacher was wrong.
That's right. We are not only going to mess with your sense of taste tonight, we are going to rewrite everything you thought you knew about it. It's an interesting story, actually, and it starts with a guy named, perhaps inappropriately, Edwin G. Boring.
So, Mr. Boring was a big shot psychologist in the first half of the 20th century. He decided he was going to write the definitive book on the history of the senses. So he's researching his taste chapter, and he comes across a paper that was published by a German scientist in the early years of the 20th century. And the German scientist is reporting that what he has noticed is that different parts of the tongue seem to be very slightly more sensitive to different tastes. The tip of the tongue seems to be slightly more sensitive to sweet, and the back of the tongue seems to be a tiny bit better attuned to bitter.
So Mr. Boring takes this and he draws a map of the tongue, but he makes it super exaggerated and demarcated.
So according to his diagram, you can only taste sweet on the tip of the tongue.
That's not what the science said at all. But because he was so influential, his tongue map swept through popular culture and schools and everything. We now know he was wrong. We have all of the receptors on all of our taste buds. Sure, maybe one part of our mouth might be very slightly more sensitive to another, but we taste everything everywhere.
But we are not all sensing it exactly the same.
This is what we are going to test on all of you tonight. Now, in your bag, you have a white strip of paper. We should have one here too. Oh yeah, we got a lot of them, Nikki. Now, I need you to take out that paper. Hold on. Here we have to do this, so we have to get our paper out.
All right, take out strip of paper.
Now, it's going to sound a little scary, but just trust us. Put it on your tongue.
We'll do it too. It's a trust exercise.
I want to take only one. Yeah. So, some of those faces out there, you get your saliva, make sure you actually taste it. So I think to some of you, it probably tastes really disgusting. I agree. It tastes gross. Yeah. But to some of you, it doesn't taste like anything.
And some of you are like me, where you're like, you know, yes, it has a bitter aftertaste, but nothing to make a whole fuss about like Cynthia is.
So this paper tests whether or not you can taste PTC. It is, yes, it's a bitter chemical. And it's one of the first ones that scientists discovered there was a genetic component to it. Some people could taste it, some people couldn't. There is a taste scientist, famous taste scientist in Florida named Linda Bartoshuk. She actually coined the term super taster, and she discovered there's a huge variety in how sensitive people are to PTC.
So, if that piece of paper tasted absolutely revolting to you, you are likely what Linda would call a super taster. But do not get all excited and think you are some kind of superhero with superpowers. Linda explained to us that actually all it means is that super tasters just taste everything a little bit more intensely. Sweet is sweeter, bitter is a little more bitter.
And if it just tasted like paper to you, you're likely what Linda calls a non-taster. Sweet's not so sweet, bitter's not so bitter, but it's a continuum, and most people are somewhere in the middle, like you, Nikki.
So most people are in the middle, but there are benefits and downsides to being at either end of the spectrum. So the most extreme super tasters, they might be more likely to avoid vegetables because vegetables are packed with compounds that can taste bitter, and of course, those compounds are really good for us, so the most extreme super tasters are often more likely to have a less healthy diet.
But super tasters are also really sensitive to bitter compounds that could be poisonous. This could be really useful if you're wandering around the savannah in search of something to eat.
Bizarrely, there are patterns in who is more or less likely to be a super taster. So men are less likely to be super tasters than women, and Caucasians are less likely to be super tasters too, for reasons that scientists have yet to figure out.
So if this tasted absolutely disgusting to you, and if you know that you tend to avoid bitter vegetables or bitter foods, you can actually train yourself to like them, and maybe you should, because as Nikki said, they actually do have compounds that are good for you. And if you need some inspiration, there is a group of indigenous Peruvians who live really high in the Andes, and they are all genetically bitter tasters. But there's this super bitter potato that makes up a key part of their diet. They all seem to enjoy the potato.
So you too can be like the Peruvians and hack your own taste buds. It's actually incredibly simple. Just add more bitter foods gradually to your diet and you will become less sensitive to bitter. Same trick works in reverse. If you reduce the amount of sugar you consume, you will become more sensitive to sweet.
Or if you want an easy hack, we have got the pill for you.
In fact, you have the pill. It is in your bag. Now is the time to get it out. Should be a little red pill. Get it out and sit it on your tongue. Do not crunch it. Do not swallow it. Just kind of suck on it. Let it dissolve and coat the top of your tongue.
So we would do this with you to prove to you we're not poisoning you. I promise we're not poisoning you. But if we did, we wouldn't be able to talk.
And we do love to talk, so you'll just have to trust us on this one.
So while you're putting that pill in your mouth and letting it dissolve, we should tell you what's in your mouth. It is an extract of a West African berry called a miracle berry. It's a little round red berry, looks a little bit like a coffee berry, if you've ever seen one of those. Obviously, West Africans have known about it forever, but it was first described by a European explorer in the 1700s, and he wrote that the West Africans would pick the berries and chew them before meals.
So, let's see what it was doing for them and what it is doing for you. Finish letting that pill kind of dissolve, suck on it, just kind of move it around the top of your tongue, get it thoroughly coated. Then reach into your bag, and this is going to sound, well, like not a great idea, but I want you to do it anyway. I want you to grab your slice of lemon and just suck on it.
Lemon. Lemon. It's time for the lemon.
Just stick that lemon in your mouth and suck on it.
I know, right? Talk about turning lemons into lemonade. I know, I'm hearing delicious. It's really good.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know you could suck on that lemon all day, but I want you to finish that up, and I want you to take out the strawberry and try that.
Yep. And this, I know, this is upsetting to me. I mean, who would have thought a strawberry could be so sickly sweet that it's actually not very nice at all? But such is the power of the miracle berry.
So scientists aren't too sure exactly how miracle berries work. They have a bunch of theories, and this is one of them. They think it changes the shape of the sweet receptor on your taste buds so that other chemicals like sour can lock into these newly deformed receptors.
And so they register as sweet. The effect will last anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on how much saliva you have and how strong it is. So savor those lemons while you can.
And see what any food or drink you have after the show, what that tastes like. So this is fun. People even have flavor-tripping parties to experiment. But why might you actually want to hack your taste buds?
Well, there are a bunch of reasons. Obviously, West Africans traditionally use miracle berries to sweeten their palm wine. Some chemo patients report that it actually really helps food taste better and get rid of that metallic tang that the chemo drugs can leave. Diabetics can use miracle berries to have a sweet tasting treat without a sugar surge.
And scientists use it to study the mysteries of taste.
Which, as you all now know, is still kind of a mystery. And that is it for tonight's show, folks. We have time for some questions, but first we want to say our thanks.
Thanks, first of all, to Chris Schmiel, who is, as you know, head of Integration Acres, where they have pawpaw fruit and frozen pawpaw pulp and amazing cheese from the goats that roam around the pawpaw trees, and he's county commissioner. Thanks so much, Chris, and a great singer. Surprise star.
We also want to thank Liz Paul, Therese Moran, and the whole crew here at Ohio University who have so kindly brought us here and wrangled all the moving parts to make tonight's show happen. We could not have had more wonderful hosts. Thank you. And we also want to thank the talented artists who donated their time to illustrate our show, one of whom is an Ohio native, just a couple hours down the road, Dave Delay, and also Lauren Searson.
And if you enjoyed tonight's show, we have good news. We're a podcast. We put out a new episode every 2 weeks. It's not live, of course, and you'll have to bring your own snack, but we are on demand. So you can find it at gastropod.com or wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe.
If you subscribe, when you subscribe, you will be able to hear full episodes on each of tonight's topics. But you will also be able to find out such valuable information as whether your olive oil is real or fake, and why medieval nuns were hooked on saffron.
So tune in. And finally, thanks so much to our volunteers and to all of you for making tonight so much fun.
All right, Chris, come on up. We are going to open it up for questions.
And I think we need to leave that there.
You can keep the mic.
Oh, you wanna
They'll
keep
do
it?
it. Yeah. So there's a mic there,
Oh, okay.
and you can line up there with your questions. We will.
Anyone has questions?
Yeah. You can also say them
Yeah,
loudly,
if
I
you
guess.
say it loudly,
Yeah.
we can hear you here. Anyone have questions? Yeah.
So, are there, I guess I have two. Are there any downsides to eating those pills and then eating? Because I have a total sweet tooth and I'm just envisioning like eating everything sweet for the rest of my life. Like, does it ever wear off?
I mean,
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
we'll
yeah.
repeat it.
The question was, are there downsides to those miracle berries? Like, does it wear off, or like, is there any reason why you shouldn't just keep taking that for the rest of your life? I think we don't know.
We don't know.
You know, the taste system is really still quite mysterious. What we do know is that when your taste receptors are triggered, your body has reactions to it. So like Cynthia said during the show, when you get a sweet taste sensation, when something locks into your sweet receptor, that actually starts setting off like the insulin production that you need to deal with the incoming sweet. Your body is sort of using that to kind of trigger and get ready, like advanced warning system for your body. So if you're constantly fooling it with a miracle berry, I have to assume there's a downside. I don't think anyone has
But
kind
we
of done
don't
it
know.
in a rigorous sort of way.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone studied the West Africans who traditionally use them.
I mean, you could be a guinea pig if you like.
Yeah.
All right.
Hi, great show tonight. Quick public health question. I think the theory was kind of thrown out that super tasters may be averse to eating vegetables and eating healthier, but is there actually any public health research on the correlation between those who can taste more sensitively and obesity or diet trends? And if not, you know, how do we get the scientific community to kind of go after that?
There has been research on sensitivity to certain types of tastes. I think Linda actually, I don't know if she did it. I think she did some
Linda
of that.
did a lot of the research on correlating actually extreme super tasters with vegetable consumption. So that is something that has been studied. The long-term health outcomes of that, I'm not sure anyone has kind of epidemiologically mapped that out. So please feel free if you're looking for a PhD topic, anyone. But it definitely does correlate with reduced vegetable consumption, and we all know vegetables are good for us.
But
so.
again, as we said, you can train yourself, right? Like I don't consider myself a super taster, but I do have a very, very strong reaction to the PTC. I find it totally revolting, but I really genuinely love and crave bitter vegetables. So you can train yourself.
Be like the Peruvians.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming out. This is really awesome. I have a question for you, Chris. This summer I got the chance to spend a lot of time in the woods in southeast Ohio and noticed like there's a lot of dead pawpaws and was told about like the pawpaw blight. Are you very familiar with that? Like, do you know much about that? And if like, what's like the future of the pawpaw?
That's interesting. Haven't seen a lot of that.
Okay.
So depending on where you saw that, I mean, I'd like to hear where was that, by the way?
It was at United Plant Savers in Meigs County. That's where I mostly saw it, and they were talking about it. I think it was something like it was a fungus that was attacking other trees, but had killed most of those trees and moving to the pawpaw because it was similar.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I have heard of this thing called the blue stain fungus, which when you cut open a piece of like a branch, you would see like a ring of blue. So look for that. That's a fungus. But in general, they seem pretty resilient. So it's not been affecting our orchard or harvesting that I know of.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I actually have a question for Chris too. You said that flies pollinate the pawpaws. How do they do that?
Okay, so at first the pawpaw. Now this is kind of an interesting kind of like thing. They're like transsexual. Okay, they're first they're females and then they're males. So the flowers, if you're familiar with them, are dark red and they hang down. And they sometimes have said to smell like rotten meat. So basically what happens is you've got some of the flowers are in the female stage and some are in the male stage. So the male has the pollen. the flies land on the flower looking for stinky red dead meat, and they get the pollen on their legs. Then they go and they find another flower that's in the female stage, and there you go. That's how it happens.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Pawpaws are so kinky. I had no idea.
Hello? Yeah?
I had a question about the origin of tomatoes making it to Europe. You said something about the Moors bringing it in. But if tomatoes are a New World species, did the Moors bring them there
Brought them
No,
from
from
Spain.
Spain.
from Spain?
Yeah, the Moors
Yeah.
got them in Spain, so
the
they were
Spanish
brought across.
got them first.
The Spanish got them first.
Yeah.
First, yeah, because the Spanish got here first, and then brought them back to Spain, and the Moors took them from Spain to Morocco, and then from Morocco to Italy, and then from Italy to France,
And onward.
through the mistaken chain of aphrodisiacs.
Exactly. And deliciousness.
Okay, I have another question, and this one kind of relates to super tasters. One of the other foods, or taste sensations that I've heard that has a similar reaction is cilantro, and I'm definitely someone who I can have one flake of cilantro in an entire meal, and I would be able to pinpoint exactly where it was. Is there any correlation?
We have done an episode on that.
this.
Not only did we do an episode, we tried to get that out of me and could not get it out.
I don't think you tried hard enough.
I don't think I tried hard enough.
She didn't
either.
try
It's true.
hard enough.
It's true. I really hate
It was
cilantro.
pathetic. You
I do
can
thi-
actually train yourself to like
Yeah.
cilantro. Cynthia just had no commitment.
No. It is genetic. It's definitely genetic, and for those of us who hate it, we are super sensitive to it. I am a very adventurous eater. There are some foods I don't like just because I don't like them, but very few things kind of get that like bleh reaction that cilantro does for me, and I guess for you too. But there are certain parts of the world where everybody eats it, and definitely some of them have the same genetic response we do. We can learn to like it. I just haven't tried hard enough.
And you are missing out on a world of goodness.
Yeah, I'm fine with
You've
this.
never had guacamole as it should be. That's all I'm saying.
I love guacamole. I hate cilantro.
Hello. I was just wondering for the ladies if you would tell us what's been the most surprising part of doing this podcast, and Chris, what's been the most surprising part of your farm?
Let's start with Chris.
The most surprising part of my farm. Wow.
You're so mean.
Geez. Black walnuts, man, maybe.
Singing on stage at your alma mater.
Gosh. Can I pass to you
Okay, so we're just
temporarily?
passing it back and forth. I tried. It gave us all a little more time. The most surprising thing about the podcast.
I tell you, the first time so I had not worked in audio, and so I had no idea what I was getting into. Cynthia was the one who knew. I knew about food. I was a journalist, but I had not done the audio part of it. And so I had, the first time we set up to record, at the time I was living in, this only seems like an appropriate story because I end up naked. But it's like, but the first time we set out to record was New York City in July,
Yeah,
I want to
It
say.
was probably July. We launched in September. It was July or August.
So you
we were
have to
recording.
switch off, Cynthia was like, you have to switch off your AC because I'll be able to
Everything,
hear
no
it.
sound.
She said, you have to get under your duvet to, create this sort of nice, warm sound for your audio.
You don't want it
because-
echoing off walls.
Yeah. She's like, so get, and then every other line she made me retake. And after
I'm
an
a
hour,
harsh taskmaster.
hour and a half, I stumbled out of the bedroom. And my husband was like, did you take a shower in your clothes? I mean, so from then on, I just recorded naked because it was like,
Well, then we also figured out. Well, so she had a closet and kind of rigged it.
Gastropod
You
is no
could-
longer made naked. Just so
It is
you
no
know.
longer made naked. We have closets. The better thing actually is a walk-in closet or a closet that you can make sort of walk-in. You do need to kind of make it all soundproof.
The time I was living in New York City, I didn't have a walk-in closet. That's the kind of thing New Yorkers dream about.
But I feel like the surprises are all kind of Nikki's. Nikki had no idea how much time it was going to take to make the podcast.
I feel like that's the story of my life. I never have any idea how much time it's going to take.
But it's been, I guess I'm kind of surprised. Well, we really thought about this as, very seriously as a business, how to treat it that way, how to grow it. Here it is.
I was
4.5
surprised it
years.
worked.
It's still, we're
Cynthia
going strong.
believed. I didn't. I was like,
It's usually the other way around, but in this case, it's true.
Yeah, I didn't believe.
It's true.
Have you got a surprise yet?
Oh, geez.
Did we talk long enough?
I don't know. I guess I'm more of like a meditative kind of person, and I've been surprised at all the lessons that I learned out on the farm. Okay, is that good enough?
That's great. Is that all? Anyone else?
Last chance. One in the front
Oh,
here.
yeah, one
okay.
over here.
So, can something like vitamin C help you with a cold? Do things like supplements, vitamin C supplements, are they your body just not?
We made an
No,
episode
yeah, we made an
about
episode about that too.
vitamins.
Yeah, I will say one thing that's not in that episode to answer. We made a whole episode about vitamins, totally worth listening to, reading the woman who wrote it, her book, Catherine Price, great book. The only thing that I have ever found scientific studies that support help for cold is taking zinc right when you first get your first sore throat. Zinc lozenges, kind of overdose on it for a few days, and it won't protect you, but it'll shorten the duration and shorten the intensity. So that's what I always do.
I really think the main thing you can do with colds, though, is just not interact with people. Ever since I became freelance and started working from home, I've just had, you don't get colds
You
anymore.
had a cold just a few weeks ago. What are you talking about?
But it was a tiny cold, though, compared to what I mean, when I used to go on the subway in New York every day and just have all the germs, it was, yeah. So, become a hermit.
Vitamins are
and
fascinating, though.
It will not be a problem anymore, and you can wear pajamas all day, so.
So there you go. That's the lesson for tonight, huh? Well, I think that is...
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we're going to call it a night. Thank you
Yes,
so much.
thank
You've been
you
great.
so much.
Thank you, Chris.